Alright, welcome back. This is an original Tales First story, and it's good to have you with us today. Let's get started.
On Thanksgiving, I found my 6-year-old daughter outside on the steps, shivering. Inside, my mother-in-law laughed and said, "Adults only, sweetheart." I didn't yell. I took action. 5 minutes later, my mother-in-law regretted everything. Thanksgiving Day. Later that afternoon, the porch light at Diane's house made the steps look almost blue in the Wisconsin cold, and my daughter Lily was sitting on the second step like she'd been put there on purpose. Her little shoes were on, but her coat wasn't zipped, and her hands were tucked under her thighs trying to stay warm. "Mom," she said, and her voice had that tight, small sound she gets when she's trying not to cry. I scooped her up and felt how cold her cheeks were. Through the back glass storm door, I could see the living room packed with adults holding wine glasses, laughing like it was a sitcom. I carried Lily back inside on my hip, and Diane actually smiled wider. "See? She's fine," she said, like it was all a joke. Then she leaned toward my child and said, sweet as syrup, "Adults only, sweetheart." I looked at Lily's pale fingers, and then at my husband Mark across the room. I pulled Lily's zipper up, adjusted Lily's scarf, and kissed the top of her head. Diane gave a little chuckle like I was being dramatic. And that's when I decided that, back home, our front door was going to stop recognizing Diane's code. One of the first times Diane used Lily like a prop was earlier that year, at Lily's 6th birthday party, right in our backyard under those cheap rainbow streamers I'd taped to the fence. Lily had frosting on her nose and a paper crown crooked on her head, and she ran up to Diane holding a crayon drawing. "Grandma, I made you our house," she said, proud. Diane took it between 2 fingers like it was a receipt and glanced at it for half a second. "That's nice," she said, already turning away. Then she pointed her wine glass toward the patio table where the adults were sitting. "Go play," Diane told her. "The grown-ups are talking." Lily froze, still holding her smile like she didn't know where to put it. I stepped closer. "She can show you," I said. Diane's eyes flicked to me. "Erin, adults need adult time," she said. And then she added, quieter, "Don't make it weird." Mark laughed too hard at something his uncle said and didn't look over. Lily slowly lowered her drawing and walked back toward the swing set by herself, like she'd learned not to take up space. Diane kept talking about proper parties and better traditions while my kid tried to disappear. Lily learned to go quiet around her grandma. A couple months later, on a Sunday afternoon in Milwaukee, I came downstairs to the sound of our pantry door clicking shut, like someone was quietly closing a secret. Diane was standing in our kitchen with a tote bag and my labeled containers spread across the counter, her bracelets clinking as she moved things around. "I'm helping," she announced before I could even speak. "Your spices were a mess." I set my laundry basket down and said, "Diane, why are you in my house?" She patted her hair like I'd asked something silly. "Your keypad," she said. "You know, the emergency code." I let myself in. Lily ran in from the living room and stopped when she saw Diane. Diane smiled at her like a queen greeting a subject. "Hi, baby. Grandma's fixing things." When Mark walked in, he did that half grin he does when he's trying to diffuse. "Mom, you didn't have to," he said. Diane waved him off. "I'm family," she said. I waited for Mark to say, "She shouldn't be in here without asking." Instead, he rubbed the back of his neck and said, "Erin, she's just trying to help." Diane slid my cookie cutters into a new drawer and looked straight at me. "We all need a little structure," she said. She said it like she owned the place. By October, Diane had turned helping into a schedule. Formal, relentless. She'd text Mark a list. Tuesdays, pick up Lily from aftercare. Thursdays, dinner at her house. Saturday mornings, grandma time. The first Tuesday she picked Lily up, I got home from work and found Lily sitting at our kitchen table with her backpack still on and her face scrunched up. Diane stood behind her, fingers on Lily's shoulders like she was steering her. "She needs more discipline," Diane said immediately. "She spilled milk at my house. I made her clean it properly." I knelt by Lily. "Are you okay?" I asked. Lily glanced at Diane before she answered, which told me everything. "I'm okay," she whispered. Mark came in carrying grocery bags and said, "Mom, thanks for grabbing her." Diane smiled. "Of course. She needs consistency." I said, "We didn't talk about you picking her up today." Diane's eyes sharpened. "I'm on the list," she replied. I asked Mark. Mark set the bags down and gave me that look, the one that says, "Please don't start." Diane kissed Lily's head and said, "Next time, you'll remember your manners, right?" Lily nodded fast. Diane loved rules when she wrote them. The next morning, I called St. Bridget's aftercare program, and the woman at the front desk sounded confused. "Yes, your mother-in-law is authorized," she said. "She's been on the pickup form since last year." I held the phone tighter. "Since last year?" I asked. "I filled out that form." The woman hesitated. "We have a signature from Mark," she said. "Please remove her," I said. The woman hesitated. "I can't do it over the phone," she said. "We need an updated form, both parents." I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I walked into our living room where Mark was tying his tie and said, "Did you put your mom on Lily's pickup list?" He blinked like he didn't understand why it mattered. "It's just for emergencies," he said. "She asked. It seemed harmless." I said, "It's not harmless if she uses it whenever she wants." Mark sighed. "Aaron, it's my mom. She wants to feel included." I stared at him until he looked away. Later that day, Diane texted me a smiley face and, "Glad I could help with Lily." I didn't respond. She didn't need permission. She needed proximity. I should have fixed the aftercare form that week, but Mark kept pushing it off. Next week, after things calmed down. And I let it sit. By the week before Thanksgiving, Diane was sending long texts like she was running a corporate retreat. "Dinner at 2:00, she wrote in the family group chat. "Appetizers at 1:00, football at 12:00, no kids in the living room during adult conversation. Bring slippers, no outside toys." She ended it with a turkey emoji, like that made it cute. I sat on our couch with my phone in my hand while Lily colored on the coffee table. "No kids in the living room?" I said out loud. Mark glanced over. "It's her house," he said, like that settled it. I typed, "Can Lily stay in the living room with us? It's going to be cold." Diane responded almost instantly. "She'll be fine. Kids need to learn boundaries. Adults need adult time." I looked at Lily, who was humming to herself, coloring a family of stick figures holding hands. My jaw went tight for a second. Then I did what I'd been doing for years. I swallowed it and wrote, "Okay." The word adults sat there like a warning. Thanksgiving morning, Diane didn't even wait for us to leave before she appeared in our kitchen. I was pulling the pie out of the oven when the keypad beeped at the front door. 2 quick chirps that meant correct code. Lily ran toward the hallway yelling, "Grandma!" And Diane walked in with a plastic container and that confident smile. "I brought my own whipped cream," she announced, like our fridge was offensive. "Yours is always too sweet." I wiped my hands and said, "Hi, Diane. We weren't expecting you." She set her purse on my counter like she lived there. "I needed to drop this off," she said, and then her eyes went to the pie. "That crust looks thin." Mark came downstairs and kissed her cheek. "Hey, Mom," he said. Diane immediately relaxed, like she'd gotten what she came for. "I'll drive you to my house," she said. "We'll go in one car. It's easier." We'll take our car, I said. Lily's booster seat is already in the back. I opened my weather app without thinking. 28 degrees, flurries starting at 3 o'clock. I watched Lily spin in her little Thanksgiving dress and imagined her outside in that cold. Diane clapped her hands. "Let's go," she said. When we pulled up, the porch steps at Diane's place were already rimmed with frost. When we arrived, Diane's house smelled like turkey and cinnamon and that lemon cleaner she loves, the one that makes everything feel staged. Her living room was packed when we arrived. Uncles, cousins, neighbors I barely knew. The TV was loud with a parade, and Diane had already decided where everyone would stand, sit, and place their coats. "Shoes off," she called as we walked in. "Coats in the back room. Kids' stuff goes downstairs." Lily clung to my hand. Diane spotted her and smiled. "There's my girl," she said, then immediately turned to a cousin. "Adults in here," she said, sweeping her hand toward the living room like she was directing traffic. Lily tugged my sleeve. "Mom, I brought Grandma the picture," she whispered, pulling a folded drawing from her purse. She walked up to Diane carefully and held it out. "I made you your kitchen," she said. Diane took it, glanced, and set it on the top of the piano without even unfolding it all the way. "That's nice," she said, already looking past Lily. Then she pointed toward the hallway. "Go downstairs with the kids," she said. Lily looked at me. I said, "She's staying with me for now." Diane's smile stayed on her face, but it got thinner. "Erin," she said, like my name was a warning. Mark stepped in with that smooth voice. "Lily, why don't you go find the toys?" he suggested. Lily hesitated, then slowly backed away, her shoulders slumping. It started with a piece of paper. At 1:45, Diane rang a little bell, an actual bell, like we were at summer camp. "Dinner in 15, she announced. She had assigned seats with place cards, even though it was family. Lily's place card was not at the main table. It was on a small folding table set up in the hallway near the back door, next to 2 toddlers and a pile of coats spilling out of the back room. I stared at it. "Why is she out here?" I asked. Diane didn't look up from adjusting a centerpiece. "Kids' table," she said. "Adults at the main table." I said, "She's 6. She can sit with us." Diane's eyes snapped to mine. "It's tradition," she said. "Don't make it a thing." Mark hovered beside me, hands in his pockets. "It's just for dinner," he murmured. Lily sat down quietly, feet swinging above the floor because the chair was too tall. The back door was drafty, and every time someone went in and out for more napkins, cold air rolled over that little hallway table. When the food came out, Diane served the main table first. Lily's plate was an afterthought. Dry turkey, a roll, no gravy. Lily stared at the mashed potatoes on the main table like they were on a different planet. I stood up to bring her some. Diane's hand shot out and touched my wrist. Not hard, but enough. "Let her wait," she said, still smiling. "Kids learn patience." Lily's cheeks were red from the cold air. Then Diane dragged Lily's chair another foot toward the back door, farther from the main table. After dinner, Diane did her adult time thing like it was a scheduled segment. She dimmed the lights in the living room and turned on some soft jazz, even though the football game was still on. "Adults in the living room," she announced. "Kids downstairs." Lily came to my side and whispered, "It's scary down there." Her voice was barely audible under the clinking dishes. I crouched. "You can stay with me," I said. Diane appeared like she'd been listening. "No," she said sharply, then softened it immediately. "Not in here. Adults only." She pointed toward the basement door. Lily's fingers curled into my sweater. "She can sit quietly," I said. Diane's smile returned, bright and fake. "Erin," she said. You're making it awkward. Mark shifted beside me. Lily, just go play for a bit, he said, trying to sound casual. Lily shook her head. Diane tilted her head and looked down at my kid. If you can't follow the rules, she said, you can sit outside for a minute and cool off. She opened the back door like it was nothing, like sending a child outside in November was a normal consequence. Lily looked at me again. One last check. For one stunned second, my body didn't move. I started to say something, but someone laughed loudly in the living room, and Diane was already ushering Lily toward the back door. I turned, and Lily was gone. I noticed the silence first. It wasn't that the house got quiet. It didn't. It was that Lily's little background noises were gone. No humming, no toy clacking, no tiny footsteps. The back door was cracked open. Lily? I called. No answer. Cold air rolled in like the house had exhaled. Through the window, I saw her on the steps, shoulders hunched, hands tucked under her legs. I didn't know if it had been 30 seconds or 3 minutes, but she was already shaking. Behind me, Mark was at the glass too, staring at her like he couldn't make his brain accept it. I yanked the door open and stepped onto the porch in my socks, the cold biting right through. Baby, I said, and Lily looked up with that tight face again. Grandma said adults only, she whispered, like she was reporting a rule, not a cruelty. I picked her up and brought her inside, my arms wrapped around her small, shaking body. The living room laughter hit me like heat. Diane saw us and laughed, actually laughed, and said, See? She's fine. Then to Lily, in that sing-song voice, Adults only, sweetheart. I turned toward the living room. Lily was outside on the steps, I said, steady, not loud, but loud enough. The laughter stumbled and died. A couple people looked from Lily to Diane. Diane's smile finally slipped. Mark was standing by the TV, frozen. I looked at him and said, Get your coat. Not angry, not pleading, just a fact. Diane's smile flickered. Erin, don't be dramatic, she said. I zipped Lily into her coat right there in the hallway, her little chin trembling against the zipper. I jammed my feet into my boots by the mat. I didn't argue. I didn't negotiate. I walked us to the door. Mark followed, quiet, like the floor had dropped out from under him. I got calm, and everything after that was just logistics. 5 minutes later, we were in the car, and Diane was left inside with a room full of adults who'd just seen exactly what she'd done. Through the window, I saw people stop pretending. Someone near the couch said, not quietly, Diane, you put a kid outside? Another voice answered, In this weather? Diane's smile vanished like a light switching off. Friday morning, our house felt different. Too quiet, like even the walls were waiting to see what I'd do next. Lily ate cereal at the table in her pajamas, watching cartoons like it was any other day, except she flinched when the doorbell chimed for a delivery. I set my coffee down and opened the Notes app on my phone where I kept our house stuff, codes, appointments, the plumber's number. I stared at the line that said, Front door keypad code, Diane. Old code. Mark came into the kitchen and leaned on the counter. His face looked tired in a new way. She didn't mean it like that, he started, and his voice sounded automatic, like he'd said it 100 times. I looked at him. Our kid was outside, I said. On purpose. He swallowed. Lily glanced up, then back to her cereal. Mark lowered his voice. So what do you want to do? He asked. I didn't answer with a speech. I slid my phone across the counter and showed him the locksmith's website already open. I wasn't sure yet if we'd hire someone or do it ourselves. Either way, Diane's access ended today. We're changing the locks, I said. Mark stared at the screen, then at Lily, then back at me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out our spare. identical to the one we'd given Diane for emergencies. He set it on the counter like it was heavier than metal. For the first time, he didn't defend her. That afternoon, I drove to the hardware store while Lily had quiet time, and I bought a re-key kit. New pins, fresh keys. Because even if we wiped Diane's code, she still had metal, and I didn't want a stranger inside our house to do what I could do myself. The cashier asked if it was for a rental, and I said, "No, it's for peace." At home, Mark held the flashlight while I took the deadbolt apart and pulled the cylinder. I changed the pins so the old key we'd given Diane wouldn't turn it anymore. Then I swapped our key rings over to the new keys. Diane's code was still programmed in there, still valid, still a tiny digital welcome mat. "Should we tell her?" Mark asked, like he was asking if we should warn a storm. I tightened the last screw and said, "She'll find out the first time she tries it." Mark exhaled through his nose, but he didn't argue. When I powered the keypad back on, it chimed, cheerful and clean. I set a new code, one Diane would never guess. And then I deleted every old user slot, including the one labeled D. Mark watched the tiny screen blink as it accepted the changes. "Try it," I told him. He typed Diane's old code out of habit. The lock buzzed and flashed red. Error. Mark's shoulders dropped like he'd been holding them up for years. I watched the old code die in real time. Saturday. Diane called Mark 3 times before noon. I could see her name lighting up his phone like a warning siren while he tried to help Lily build a Lego tower. On the 4th call, he answered, standing in the hallway with his hand over the microphone like he was trying to keep the sound contained. "Hi, Mom," he said. Diane's voice came through loud anyway. "Why did you leave?" she demanded. "You embarrassed me." Mark glanced at me, then back down the hallway where Lily was stacking bricks. "We left because Lily was outside," he said carefully. Diane scoffed. "Oh, please. She was fine. Kids get cold for 2 minutes and live." Mark's jaw tightened. "Don't do that again," he said. Silence. Then Diane, calmer. "I'm coming by Monday to drop off leftovers and a little gift. I'll let myself in." Mark swallowed. "No," he said. "Text first. We'll meet you at the door." Diane laughed like it was cute. "Mark," she said, "I'm your mother." Mark's voice was quiet. "And Lily's my daughter." Diane wasn't asking. She was auditing. Sunday evening, I took Lily to the little park by Lake Michigan, where the wind always makes your eyes water, even when you're bundled up. We got hot chocolate from the corner cafe afterward, and Lily held the cup with both hands like it was a hand warmer. "Are we going to Grandma's again?" she asked, staring at the whipped cream. I kept my voice light. "Not for a while," I said. "Our house is the safe house." Lily nodded like that made sense. "Can we make our own Thanksgiving next time?" she asked. "With pancakes?" I smiled. "We can make our own everything," I said. That night, I set my phone on the nightstand and turned the ringer up because I wanted to see whatever came next instead of being surprised by it. Monday morning, before I'd even finished packing Lily's lunch, my doorbell camera sent a notification. Diane was on our porch with a glossy gift bag, her lipstick too bright for 7 a.m., and her face already tense. She punched the keypad once, then again. Then she pulled a key from her purse and tried the deadbolt. It wouldn't turn. Then she stared at the door like it had betrayed her. Then she stepped back and rang the doorbell anyway. I watched from the kitchen window as Diane adjusted the tissue paper in the gift bag, pasted on a smile, then knocked, twice, like nothing had happened. Lily was at the table eating toast, humming softly. I walked to the front door and left the chain on. "Hi, Diane," I said through the crack. Diane's eyes flicked to the chain, then back to my face. "Good morning," she sang. "I brought leftovers and a little something for Lily." She held up the bag like a peace offering. The code isn't working, she added, softer, like the house had made a mistake. We changed it, I said. Diane blinked, still smiling, but the smile started to shake at the edges. Changed it? She repeated. Why would you? I cut in, still calm. Because you let yourself in whenever you want. That's over. Diane's cheeks flushed. I'm family, she snapped. Then she remembered Lily could probably hear and forced her voice sweet again. Lily, sweetheart, Grandma got you a surprise. Lily slid off her chair and stopped behind me, not touching the door. Hi, she whispered. Diane leaned closer to the crack. Can I come in? She asked, like it was a formality. I shook my head. Not today, I said. Diane's fingers tightened around the gift bag handles. She still thought a bag could buy a pass. After she left, Diane didn't go quietly. She texted Mark a wall of messages. How I'd overreacted, how I'd poisoned him, how children don't belong in adult spaces. Mark sat on the couch with his phone in his hand, reading in silence. Lily played on the rug with her dolls, lining them up like a little audience. Finally, Mark typed one sentence and showed it to me before he hit send. It said, "You put Lily outside in the cold. You don't have our door code anymore. Do not come over without permission." Diane replied instantly, "I did not. Aaron is twisting things." Mark stared at that and then typed again. "I saw her on the steps. Don't lie to me." He hit send. There was a pause. Real pause. Like Diane didn't know what to do when the usual script stopped working. Then, "I was teaching her respect." Mark's thumb hovered. He didn't write a paragraph. He wrote, "Respect is not freezing on a porch. We'll reach out when we're ready." He set the phone down like he was done touching something dirty. Lily looked up and said, "Is Grandma mad?" Mark swallowed and said, "Grandma made a bad choice." He finally said the sentence out loud. By Tuesday, Diane had recruited an audience. My sister-in-law Kelsey called me while I was loading the dishwasher, her voice careful like she was walking across ice. "So, what happened?" she asked. "Mom says you locked her out and you're withholding Lily." I dried my hands and said, "Lily was outside in the cold because Diane wanted adults only. We changed our locks. That's it." Kelsey went quiet. "Outside?" she repeated. "On the porch?" I didn't add emotion. I didn't need to. "Yes," I said. "In November. In Milwaukee. Shoes on. Coat unzipped." Kelsey exhaled. "Okay," she said, and the words sounded like a door closing. Before she hung up, she said, "She's been calling me nonstop. She wants me to come with her and talk to you." Later that afternoon, Mark's dad, Tom, who usually kept his distance from Diane's drama, stopped by with 2 coffees and stood on our porch like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to be there. I opened the door and he held the cups out like a peace treaty. "I'm not here to fix it," he said quickly. "I'm here to say, that wasn't okay." He looked past me and saw Lily peek around the corner. His face softened. "Hey, kiddo," he said gently. Lily waved, then hid again. Tom's eyes flicked to the chain lock. "Good," he said under his breath. Diane was losing her audience. The school call came the next morning while I was in a meeting at work. My phone buzzed, and when I saw St. Bridget's office, my stomach tightened once, then my brain went straight into checklist mode. I stepped into the hallway. "This is Erin," I said. The receptionist sounded polite but firm. "Hi, Erin. Your mother-in-law is here," she said. "She says she's picking Lily up early for a surprise lunch." I closed my eyes for half a second. "No," I said. "She is not." The receptionist lowered her voice. "She's on the authorized list," she said. "We'll need an updated form," she added, "signed by both parents." My stomach dropped because I still hadn't filed the updated pickup form. My hand tightened on the phone. "She won't be after I bring the updated form in today," I said. "Please keep Lily inside. Do not release her." I drove to the school so fast I didn't even turn on the radio. When I walked into the office, Diane was standing at the counter with a gift bag, smiling like she was about to win something. "There you are," she said, like I was late to a plan she'd made. I didn't raise my voice. I looked at the receptionist and said, "Do not release Lily to Diane today. I'll be back before dismissal with the updated form signed by both parents." The receptionist nodded and slid a blank pickup form toward me. Then I looked at Diane. "You don't get to show up at my child's school," I said. Diane's smile slipped. "I'm her grandmother," she hissed. I leaned in and said, "And I'm the person who decides who takes her home." Now she was testing doors I hadn't even thought about. That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table with the school's pickup form and a pen, and I treated it like a security document. I crossed Diane's name out so hard the paper tore slightly. I added a password requirement for phone calls. I added Mark's dad Tom and my friend Sarah as backups, people who respected no. Mark watched me write, his face tight. "I didn't know she'd do that," he said. I didn't say, "Of course she would." I just slid the form toward him. "Sign," I said. He signed without arguing. I drove the signed form back to St. Bridget's before dismissal and watched the receptionist remove Diane's name from Lily's file. An hour later, our doorbell camera pinged again. Diane was in our driveway, not carrying a bag this time, just walking around the side of the house like she was checking for a window. I watched the live feed and felt that calm settle in again, the calm that comes when you're done being negotiable. I texted Mark. "She's here." Mark came home early and walked outside before she could reach the back door. I opened the front door just enough to hear. "Mom," Mark said, voice low. "What are you doing?" Diane turned fast, caught. "I thought maybe the keypad was broken," she said, too bright. Mark held his hand out. "Give me the key," he said. Diane's face flashed with anger. "I don't have a key," she snapped. Mark didn't move. "Give me the key," he repeated, calm as ice. After a long second, Diane pulled a small key from her purse like she'd been hiding contraband and slapped it into his palm. We took back the last key she'd been given. Thursday night, Diane tried a different tactic, social pressure. She invited half the family to her house for leftover night and texted Mark a group photo from earlier. Everyone smiling at her table, like proof of her innocence. Then, right around 6:30, our doorbell rang. When I checked the camera, Diane was on our porch again, and this time she'd brought Kelsey with her, like a witness. Kelsey looked uncomfortable, hands shoved in her pockets. Diane stood tall, chin up, wearing the same bright smile she used at church potlucks and neighborhood picnics. I didn't open the door. I spoke through the camera speaker. "Hi," I said. Diane's eyes snapped to the lens. "Erin," she called, like we were friends. "We're here to talk like adults." I kept my tone flat. "You can text," I said. Diane's smile tightened. "This is ridiculous," she said, loud enough for Kelsey to hear. "You're keeping my granddaughter from me." Kelsey's eyes flicked to the camera, then away. I said, "Diane, you tried to pick her up from school. You're not welcome on my porch." Diane's face went stiff. Kelsey whispered something to her. Diane turned sharply and hissed back, and even through the camera I could tell she was furious. Then she looked up and said, "Fine," like she was granting me something. She'd brought witnesses. It didn't work. By the time December rolled around, Diane realized she couldn't force her way in, so she tried to force Mark out. She called him during Lily's Saturday morning dance class and left a voicemail that sounded like a rehearsed monologue. I'm your mother, she said. You don't do this to your mother. If Aaron is controlling you, I need you to man up. Mark played it for me in the car after class, while Lily kicked her legs in the back seat, still wearing her leotard. Mark didn't look at me when it finished. He looked straight ahead and said, I'm done being managed. Then he did something small but real. He texted Diane, Do not talk about my wife like that. If you want a relationship with us, you apologize and you follow our rules. He didn't add a joke. He didn't add a softener. He hit send and put his phone on silent. Lily asked, Are we getting a tree today? And I said, Yep. We went to the tree lot, picked a crooked little spruce and strapped it to the roof of our car in the cold. Diane didn't get to control that day. We did. A week later, Diane finally asked instead of announced. She texted me directly. No group chat, no emoji parade. Can we meet for coffee? Just you and me. I stared at the message for a long second. Then I replied with one condition. Public place. 20 minutes. No blaming. She agreed within a minute, which told me she'd run out of other doors to try. We met at a Starbucks near the mall, neutral territory with too many people for theatrics. Diane arrived 5 minutes early and sat stiffly with her purse on her lap like a shield. I want to see Lily, she said immediately. I nodded once. Then we're clear, I said. No unannounced visits. No school. No adults only. No sending her away from me. If you can't follow that, you don't get access. Diane's lips pressed into a thin line. I was raised with rules, she said. I didn't argue about her childhood. I said, These are ours. She looked down at her coffee like it had answers. After a long second, she added, stiff, I shouldn't have put her outside. Finally, she said, tight, fine. Not warm, not heartfelt, but it was compliance. For the first time, she asked instead of announced. The next Thanksgiving, we didn't go to Diane's house at all. We did pancakes at 10 a.m., just like Lily had requested. And we invited Tom and Kelsey and a couple friends who never made Lily feel like she was in the way. The turkey came later, because it turns out you can build traditions from scratch if you stop outsourcing your piece. Diane was invited for dessert only, with a clear time window, because boundaries are easier to keep when you don't pretend people have changed more than they have. At 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Diane was standing there with a pie carrier, waiting. She didn't touch the keypad. She didn't try a code. She just waited like a person who understood she was not in charge. I opened the door fully this time. Hi, I said. Diane stepped inside and looked around like she wanted to comment on everything but knew better. Lily walked up to her, not hiding, not stiff. Diane bent down and said, quieter than I'd ever heard her, Happy Thanksgiving, Lily. Lily nodded and went back to her pancakes and cousins without fear. I watched that, and I felt something solid settle into place. Our new normal, built out of small, boring choices that kept my kids safe. What line would you draw for your child? So what do you think? Did I go too far, or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.